As all things burn, their essence laid bare, the earth conceals its skin, a silent despair. Angels have vanished, devils lost in the haze, words linger alone, in a ghostly maze. No mouth utter truth, just echoes that swell, it's not nothing or void, it's judgment's deep well. The grey land stretches neath grey, heavy skies, a canvas of silence where no spirit flies. Spectators gather, their eyes fixed on you, your every motion, a spectacle too. What once was your own, a dance turned to scorn, their hands glimmer gold, while you feel forlorn. They laugh as you stand wrapped in bronze, cold and meek, all you can do is simply feel weak. For right's not a beacon, nor wrong a clear sign, only judgment exists in this realm so unkind. I never imagined I would return to this place, the land of judgment. The air itself seemed to resist my every breath, thick with the stench of iron and ash. Overhead, the skies stretched endlessly, a suffocating veil of grey that pressed down upon us like the weight of 1,000 unspoken sins. Beneath our feet, the concrete was slick and cold, reflecting a dull sheen from the pallid light that struggled to pierce through the clouds. We stood in a vast procession that wound through the wasteland like a serpent of despair, thousands of us, shackled from wrist to ankle. The chains bit cruelly into our skin, leaving welts that pulsed with every movement. Each step forward echoed with a metallic clatter of restraint, a symphony of suffering that carried us closer to the looming fortress ahead. Its walls, monolithic and grey, rose like a mausoleum for the condemned, absorbing every glimmer of hope from the world around it. But it was the flag that unsettled me most. A massive banner of crimson hung from the tallest spire, its edges tattered and fluttering faintly in the wind. The red was not bright, but deep and bleeding, the colour of old wounds, of lives spent and promises broken. It draped over the castle as if to claim everything beneath it, a reminder that mercy did not dwell here. As we shuffled forward, the line slowed. I glanced back to see Timothy lagging behind, his chains dragging across the ground. His eyes were hollow, his movements mechanical, his spirit consumed by something I could not touch. "Timothy, you need to keep up," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "The slower you move, the longer we all stay trapped in this nightmare." He didn't answer. His gaze remained fixed on the earth, but I knew he wasn't looking at it. He was staring through it, through time itself. His thoughts were somewhere far behind us, tangled in the memory of what we had lost. Only a day had passed since Grace died, but to him, it was already an eternity of guilt and grief. His silence spoke of the things he wished he had done differently, of the prayers that had gone unanswered. I let him have that silence. It was the only thing left that still belonged to him. As we neared the gates, the air thickened with dread. The murmur of the crowd rose into a low, restless hum, an orchestra of fear. I had seen this court before, but never like this. It was overflowing with souls, their faces drawn and pale, their eyes darting with desperate confusion. At the front stood a man cloaked in dark robes, his hands blackened by soot. Before him, an altar of stone glowed faintly with symbols that pulsed like living veins. He dipped his fingers into a bowl of grey ash and pressed them to the forehead of the next soul in line. With deliberate, ritualistic care, he painted 3 red lines across their skin. The moment the third line was drawn, a scream erupted, raw and piercing, the kind that clawed through the air and buried itself into the mind. The person convulsed, their flesh dissolving like wax under fire, their essence laid bare for the unseen eyes of judgment. Timothy stumbled forward, his voice cracking. "What are they doing to them?" I turned, forcing myself to meet his gaze. "They're using the ashes of Kronos," I said slowly, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. Mixed with the blood of the condemned, it reveals the truth of who they were, their sins, their memories, their intentions. The gods watch through it. They judge what they see. Timothy's eyes widened, flickering with something fragile, a dying hope. Kronos. He found a way to see through time, didn't he? "Yes," I said quietly. "And now his gift is their weapon." His discovery became the key to this place. He swallowed hard. Then, "Does that mean our powers don't work here?" I finished for him. "No strength, no magic, no divinity. Only balance. That's the rule of this realm." I looked up toward the fortress, its silhouette blotting out what little light remained. The gods made this land so that no one, mortal or divine, could escape judgment. A hush fell between us, heavy and absolute. Ahead, the screams continued, blending with the grinding of chains and the whispers of the condemned. And as we stepped forward, one link at a time, I realized that every sound, every breath, Every heartbeat was leading us closer, not to salvation, but to reckoning. Timothy lowered his gaze once more, the weight of his grief pressing down like a slab of stone. One singular, burning thought consumed him. He had to avenge Grace, the innocent soul devoured by a fate too cruel to name. The promise throbbed behind his eyes, sharper than any blade, but it clashed violently with the chains that bound him, both seen and unseen. How could vengeance exist in a realm where even the will to act was stripped away? Here, in this place of eternal judgment, his thoughts felt shackled to the void. Was he destined to meet the same end as Grace? Would he, too, be flung into the abyss, swallowed by the black maw of nothingness? Or worse, would he awaken to a fate more terrible than death, one that would gnaw away his soul until even memory ceased to exist? The uncertainty devoured him from within, a silent storm raging behind his hollow stare. He felt as though he were drowning slowly, not in water, but in time itself, each moment stretching into an eternity of dread. As we stepped closer to the dais, a suffocating aura of dread coiled around us. There, at the heart of the great hall, stood a figure robed in deep crimson. The air rippled with a heatless pulse, as though reality bent in reverence, or fear, of this being's presence. Beside him rested a massive golden bowl, vast enough to cradle a man. Its surface shimmered faintly under the dim light, etched with inscriptions that seemed to writhe when stared at too long. One of the figure's hands clutched a smaller basin brimming with grey ash, while the other supported a vessel heavy with dark, viscous blood that seemed to breathe. I dared to look up, hoping to glimpse the face of our judge. But there was no face, no skin, no eyes, no semblance of life. Only an endless hollow where a visage should have been. From that void emanated the faint hum of countless voices whispering in sorrow, each one trapped within the folds of the deep red fabric that draped him. It reminded me of the three sisters of despair, ancient weavers of grief, forever entangled in the threads of their own creation. When the being spoke, the sound was not one voice, but two, perhaps more. Their words rolled like thunder across a storm-choked sky, resonating in my chest and rattling my bones. "This is the ash of the god of time," they intoned, the dual voices harmonizing with an unnatural precision. "And this is the blood of all life." Together, they formed the eyes of truth. Through them, your past shall be unearthed, your present laid bare, and your destined future revealed. You shall stand before the divine tribunal, before the Lord of judgment himself. Whatever verdict emerges will serve the greater good, whether you understand it or not. Their words fell like the toll of a great bell, final, inescapable. Then the twin forms turned toward me, moving with a slow, ritualistic grace. The first dipped his fingers into the ash and pressed them against my forehead. The cold spread instantly, seeping beneath my skin like frost sinking into bone. I gasped as visions flickered in my mind, fragmented images of the past, faces I had lost, choices I could never undo. Before I could process them, the second figure raised his blood-soaked hand. He drew 3 deliberate stripes across my brow. Each stroke burned hotter than fire, searing through my nerves until I could no longer distinguish pain from power. A roar filled my ears, a soundless, endless rush, and my body convulsed. I collapsed to the ground, the world spinning out of focus as the golden bowl shimmered with blinding light. The last thing I saw before darkness claimed me were the robed figures emerging from the shadows, their movements methodical, their faces hidden. They lifted me effortlessly, carrying me toward whatever judgment awaited beyond the veil. Through the haze of my fading sight, I glimpsed Timothy. He stood motionless, paralyzed not by fear but by realization. His lips trembled, shaping words he could not speak. I saw him try to move, but his limbs defied him, his body no longer his own. Something ancient and unseen had slipped inside him, turning his will into a puppet's dance. The crimson-clad figures approached him as they had me, their shadows rippling across the ground like spilled ink. The ritual repeated, the chant, the ash, the blood, and Timothy's body arched in silent agony. His eyes rolled back, and he fell beside me, lifeless yet not dead. The robed attendants lifted him next, their grip gentle yet absolute, and carried him away into the dark corridor that devoured the condemned. I wanted to reach for him, to call out his name, but my voice failed me. The world dimmed to grey, the air thick with whispers of unseen watchers. And then there was nothing, only the echo of our names fading into the hollow silence of eternity. When consciousness finally returned, it did so like a reluctant dawn, slow, fractured, and uncertain. My eyes fluttered open to a strange, colorless radiance that bled from every surface around us. We were no longer on the blood-stained ground of judgment. Instead, We found ourselves confined within a circular cell that felt less like a prison and more like an impossible construct, an architectural paradox. The walls curved endlessly, without a seam or shadow to anchor them. They shimmered faintly, like pearls under shifting light, denying us the comfort of corners or edges. There was no ceiling visible, only an expanse of white that seemed to breathe faintly, pulsing with a rhythm I could neither name nor measure. The floor beneath our feet was made of flawless marble, smooth and cool, reflecting faint ripples of light that moved without a source. At the very center of the room lay a circular rug, crimson and impossibly vivid, its color so deep it felt alive, as though it were drinking in the pallid glow around it. Timothy and I sat at opposite ends of that strange circle, separated not by distance, but by despair. Our garments, plain white jumpsuits, hung loosely on our frames, coarse fabric biting at our skin. Gone were the marks of our past selves, the symbols of power, the weight of divinity, the comforting illusions of choice. We were stripped bare, not merely of our clothes, but of our identities. Even the air felt different here, thin and sterile, as if the room itself had decided to filter out life. There was no sound, no scent, no warmth. No food, no water. Only stillness. Days bled together into an eternal grey, time dissolving into something shapeless. For 2 weeks, if weeks still had meaning in this place, we waited, caught between exhaustion and restless thought. Hunger gnawed at the body, silence gnawed at the soul. I would sometimes walk in circles along the edge of the cell, tracing the curvature of the wall until my mind spun with it. The endless turning felt like a cruel metaphor, the shape of our confinement, a perfect loop. It was as though the gods had carved a prison from the concept of futility itself, an eternal cycle from which no beginning or end could be discerned. Timothy, on the other hand, seemed to withdraw deeper with each passing moment. His once sharp eyes dulled into a glassy stillness, his movements slow, deliberate, mechanical. He rarely spoke, but when he did, his voice was hollow, like an echo from a distant cavern. I saw the toll it took on him. The quiet desperation that had once driven him now eroded into something darker, more fragile. He wasn't simply trapped, he was unraveling. Then, one night, though here, night was only an absence of light, something flickered behind his eyes. A thought, a spark, an ember. He looked up, meeting my gaze for the first time in days. "Do you remember telling me about the man who trapped a god inside a bottle?" he asked, his voice breaking the oppressive stillness like a crack in glass. I hesitated, caught off guard. "Yes," I said slowly. "But why?" Timothy's lips twisted into something between a smile and a grimace. "What's the worst they can do to us, Eden? They're already going to kill us." His tone was calm, but his eyes burned with a feverish light. I felt anger surge through me, born not of rage, but of fear. "Timothy, that's madness. In madness," he cut in sharply, "is all we have left." There was a tremor in his words, something that wavered between despair and revelation. He began to speak again, but now his voice carried the cadence of storytelling, as though summoning an ancient truth. He told me of Odith, a demigod who once walked the sands of ancient Egypt before the Battle of Pelusium, an age when men and gods still crossed paths beneath the same sun. Odith was a scholar and an archer, a man who sought not conquest but comprehension. He read the tongues of the world, deciphered prayers older than empires, and spent his nights gazing at the stars, seeking meaning in their silent dance. Yet all his learning could not save him from love. For among the slaves of the pharaoh, he found a woman of radiant spirit, bound by chains not of iron, but of lineage, a curse placed upon her family generations before. Her ancestors had stolen from the gods, and for their transgression, every descendant was condemned to servitude, denied the right to witness beauty. When Odith beheld her, the gods trembled. They feared what might come from such a union, a demigod's love for the cursed. So they conspired to sever it. But love, obstinate and wild, is not so easily subdued. The two met in secret along the banks of the Nile, where the moon spilled silver across the water. For a time, they defied divine decree, until the night the gods discovered them. The girl's life was taken with merciless precision, her blood swallowed by the river that had once reflected her laughter. Grief consumed Odith, transfiguring him into something the gods themselves feared. He abandoned the temples and buried himself in forbidden study, searching for a way to imprison what was immortal. 4 years, he toiled, crafting vessels, inscribing sigils that blended science and sorcery, faith and fury. And one night, legend says, he succeeded. When the gods who had slain his love descended to destroy him, he opened his creation, a bottle forged from tears and divine marrow, and drew them into it. Their cries echoed for days before the river took them, dragging their prison into its depths, where they would remain for eternity, drowning, unending, forgotten. Timothy's laughter broke the silence, a sound raw, unbalanced, too human to belong in this sterile place. "That's what I have to do for grace," he said, his eyes wide and glimmering. "Timothy," I began, trying to pull him back, "you don't have to do this. Revenge won't mend what's broken. It'll only bury you with her." He turned toward me, and for a moment, his expression softened, but the light in his eyes was no longer warmth. It was fire. "It won't ease my pain," he said quietly, "but it will give me peace, knowing they suffer as we have." Before I could respond, the still air quivered, followed by the deep, resonant groan of metal. The wall behind us split open, and from the rift emerged a figure draped in crimson robes. He moved with slow, deliberate grace, the folds of his garment whispering against the marble. His face was concealed, but his presence radiated authority, the kind that made even breath feel like defiance. Without a word, he extended his hand and, with a subtle motion, the chains binding us fell away as if they had never existed. My limbs trembled, not from freedom, but from the weight of what awaited. Timothy rose beside me, his jaw set, his eyes unblinking. We followed the crimson figure out of the cell and into the cold, endless corridor beyond. The circular prison faded behind us, but its memory clung like a shadow. Ahead, through the haze of white light, loomed the court of the gods, the place where all debts, mortal and divine, were finally collected. And as we walked toward our judgment, I couldn't help but wonder which of us would leave that place still human. The courtroom loomed before us like an ancient cathedral carved into the bones of the universe. Its enormity dwarfed comprehension, stretching far beyond sight, its walls spiraling upward into an abyss of golden mist and shifting constellations. The air shimmered faintly, as if infused with a residue of 1,000 unspoken verdicts. Columns of onyx and gold coiled upward, their surfaces engraved with celestial runes that pulsed in rhythm with the beating of unseen hearts. It was not merely a courtroom, it was a cosmic arena of judgment, suspended between worlds. Rows upon rows of tiered seats rose along the walls like the steps of a colosseum, each one occupied by beings of impossible variety. Ethereal figures cloaked in white smoke, angels whose wings drooped under the weight of divine sorrow, hollow-eyed mortals who glimmered faintly like fading stars. They whispered among themselves, their voices merging into a low, omnipresent murmur that echoed through the vast chamber like the sound of the sea. Upon the long, curved tables before them lay parchment scrolls and tablets inscribed with silver ink, their contents shifting and rewriting themselves with every passing moment. At the heart of it all, elevated upon a dais of black stone that seemed to drink in the surrounding light, sat the judge. He was colossal, a being fashioned from the very fabric of creation itself. His skin rippled with constellations, each movement sending galaxies tumbling across his vast form. Stars winked within his chest, dying and rebirthing with every breath he took. His eyes were twin supernovas, deep and distant, and yet unbearably present, gazing not at us but through us, peeling back every layer of soul and sin until nothing remained hidden. Beside him stood an equally surreal figure, a giant bunny, upright and regal, its fur pristine white, its eyes a glimmering jade. It wore a tailored coat of emerald green, embroidered with spiraling gold patterns that pulsed faintly with divine energy. Though its appearance bordered on absurdity, there was nothing comical about the aura it exuded. Its presence radiated a cold, severe intelligence, as if it embodied the paradox of mercy and cruelty intertwined. Timothy's breath hitched beside me. I could feel the tension coursing through him, a storm barely restrained beneath the surface. Though his expression remained composed, the subtle tremor in his hands betrayed the dread he carried. "Don't say anything," I whispered. "Let me handle this." He nodded, but his eyes, haunted, uncertain, never left the towering figures before us. A deep, resonant tone reverberated through the chamber, like the tolling of a cosmic bell. Then, the gavel fell. The sound rippled outward in concentric waves, shaking the marble beneath our feet, silencing every whisper, every breath. The air itself seemed to hold still in anticipation. The bunny was the first to speak. "Here we gather to witness the trial of Timothy Redneck and the fallen god of man," it announced, its voice smooth and echoing, reverberating across the walls as if the universe itself repeated its words. "Their transgressions stain not just one realm, but many. They have committed crimes of creation and destruction, weaving chaos through the threads of existence." The creature's jade eyes gleamed as it unfurled a scroll that shimmered with red symbols, the letters rearranging themselves like living serpents. They obliterated their own universe, the bunny continued, then dared to rebuild it in their own image, defying the natural order. As if that blasphemy were not enough, they took the spirit of a mortal, innocent and pure, and imprisoned it within a creature of their making. This act set in motion an empire of abominations, an army destined to rise and consume the balance between life and death itself. The murmurs in the crowd intensified, a wave of disapproval sweeping through the gathered entities. The sound was like wind moving through a forest of ghosts. The bunny's voice, however, rose above it, sharp and precise. All of this destruction began with a single human failure, a mother's grief, a child lost, and a sorrow unchecked. The words dripped with scorn, a tragedy twisted into defiance. And now, entire worlds will suffer for it. A ripple of disgust coursed through the spectators, their gazes turning toward us with silent condemnation. Their faces blurred together, divine, human, monstrous, all unified in their disdain. But the depravity does not end there, the bunny said, voice tightening into venom. They have even taken the child of Hex, the keeper of cycles. Timothy froze, his mind reeling. Why is he lying? He hissed under his breath. My jaw clenched. His not lying, I murmured. His rewriting. They twist the truth to suit their justice. They tell the story they want the world to believe. The bunny continued his litany, each word striking like a hammer blow, layering accusation upon accusation until the air itself felt heavy with sin. I tried to listen, but my mind began to retreat, pulling inward. The sound of his voice dulled to a distant hum as my thoughts spiraled inward, into guilt, into exhaustion, into the cold pit of despair that had long since taken root in my chest. No matter how many times I tried to rise above it, fate always found a way to drag me back down, to this courtroom, this cycle, this moment of reckoning. Then, the bunny's voice sharpened again. Look at them, he said, gesturing toward us. They stand in silence, as if the weight of truth has bound their tongues. They offer no defense, for they know, deep down, they are guilty. They have sinned against time, against nature, against the divine order itself. And now, judgment will reveal all that festers beneath their silence. The murmurs fell away. The vast chamber grew still once more, as though even the air awaited the sentence. Justice sees what even gods cannot, the bunny declared, and it will not be denied. His hand will rise against them, and their hearts will be chained to the consequences they have wrought. He bowed his head and stepped aside, the echo of his words lingering like smoke. The colossal judge shifted upon his throne of stars, the cosmos within him stirring, galaxies collapsing into black holes as his gaze descended upon us. Every pair of eyes in the room, thousands, perhaps millions, turned our way. Their collective stare was a physical force, pressing down on my chest until I could scarcely breathe. My skin prickled under the invisible weight of their judgment. Timothy stood beside me, unmoving, his silence a brittle shield against the storm. In that moment, surrounded by the infinite eyes of gods and ghosts alike, I understood the cruelty of this realm. It was not the punishment that broke you, it was the watching. This is not like a human court, Timothy whispered, his voice so low it barely existed between heartbeats. His left hand trembled against his leg, a small, human quiver that betrayed the terror he tried so hard to bury. I could see it, the fear threading itself into his bones, anchoring there. It was the same fear that had begun to take root in me, cold and metallic, creeping through every vein like frost through cracked glass. Hope once shimmered faintly in Timothy's eyes, a dying ember, but now it had burned out completely, leaving only the dull gleam of resignation. Around us, the courtroom loomed eternal and indifferent, its vaulted ceilings dissolving into galaxies, its marble floor reflecting our images like ghosts trapped beneath ice. The faint hum of divine energy vibrated through the air, an omnipresent heartbeat that pulsed in time with the tension building in my chest. This was no place of fairness. This was not justice. This was the end. Mr. Wiggles stepped forward from his place beside Judgment, and the atmosphere shifted as though the cosmos itself bowed to his presence. The whimsical absurdity of his form, a towering, humanoid bunny in a vivid emerald coat, did nothing to soften the dread he commanded. In that moment, he was no longer a curious anomaly. He was an executioner cloaked in innocence. His fur gleamed under the pale starlight that filtered from above, each strand catching the radiance like threads of silver. When he lifted his head, his jade-green eyes fixed on me with surgical precision, eyes that did not merely look at you, but into you, as though dissecting the architecture of your soul. His expression was void of compassion, his composure sharp enough to draw blood. With deliberate grace, He raised one gloved hand and pointed directly at me. The gesture carried no hesitation, only intent. I could feel the weight of it, a silent verdict spoken before any words left his mouth. "We shall begin," he said, his voice deep, resonant, and commanding, "with Eden, the false god of man." The sound of my name rang through the courtroom like an ancient bell, one struck only to mark the moment before annihilation. Every head in the chamber turned toward me. The silence that followed was not empty. It was heavy, vibrating with centuries of judgment and resentment. I rose slowly from my chair. My body moved on instinct, though every step felt like wading through gravity made liquid. My pulse pounded in my ears, yet I kept my face still, my voice calm. As you already know, I began, standing shoulder to shoulder with judgment, the colossal being who presided over all. "My name is Eden, and I am the god of man." Judgment did not move. He sat as a monument of cosmic law, his form composed of endless stars and shifting nebulae, his silence the kind that could level worlds. The energy that radiated from him was neither benevolent nor cruel, it was inevitable. Mr. Wiggles, however, rolled his eyes. It was a small motion, yet in this vast court, it echoed louder than thunder. His disdain carried the weight of divine contempt. "I am here once again to defend myself against you all," I said, forcing the tremor from my voice. "You find my actions abhorrent. You accuse me of playing God, of resurrecting a dead child." Wiggles' interruption came like a blade. "It was never your place, Eden." The words cut through the air, shattering the fragile calm. "You are neither existence nor the departed," he hissed. "What made you think you could stride into the realm of the dead, tear a spirit from its rightful rest, and bind it into a creature of your own design? Do you fancy yourself the architect of eternity?" Each syllable struck like a hammer against stone, reverberating in the hollow of my chest. His gaze seared me, cold and relentless, and I could feel the collective agreement of the courtroom pressing in around me like an ocean of disapproval. I lowered my head for a heartbeat, not in submission, but in thought. My eyes swept over the crowd, the celestial beings, the ethereal witnesses, the silent watchers whose expressions mirrored Wiggles' scorn. My defiance sparked within me like a dying star fighting against collapse. "The creature would do no harm," I said, lifting my gaze to meet his. "If it were raised with love, if it were given the chance to live freely, it would not destroy." A ripple of uneasy murmurs swept through the chamber. Wiggles' long ears twitched in irritation. He clicked his tongue and began pacing, his emerald coat swaying like a banner of judgment. "Correct me if I'm wrong," he said, voice dripping with mockery. "But you claim that nurture alone can rewrite the nature of a being forged in sin? That's because it has a human to guide it. It will simply overcome what it is." He paused, glaring. "You think blood can be undone by affection?" I couldn't help it. A short, disbelieving laugh escaped me. It was brittle, but real. "And who decides what it is?" I countered, my tone sharp. "You, them." I gestured to the silent ranks of spectators. "Or the one who made it with the intention to heal what was broken. You speak of sin, but you twist it to fit your design. You demonize what you do not understand." His stare hardened into something lethal. If looks could burn, the floor beneath me would have turned to glass. Wiggles took a step closer, his voice now rising, cold fury bleeding through the cracks of his control. "You dare to lecture me on understanding?" he roared, his voice splitting the silence, shaking the foundations of the hall. "You, who tore the veil between life and death. You, who condemned entire realms to instability because you could not bear to let one mortal go." His words struck deep, but I refused to flinch. "I know what I've done," I said, my voice steady now, every word deliberate. "And I know what I've seen. Not everything good is truly good, Wiggles, and not everything dark is evil. The creature you curse carries the soul of a boy, a human boy. He lives, he breathes, he feels love. He is not a monster. He is being raised by a mother who cherishes him more deeply than any god here could comprehend." Wiggles froze. His jaw tightened. Slowly, he turned toward the pedestal before judgment, where a crystal orb rested upon an obsidian stand. Its surface shimmered with slow-moving galaxies. Without a word, he reached for it. The chamber darkened. The instant his hand touched the orb, the light within it came alive, spinning and churning like a newborn sun. He rubbed it once, twice, 3 times. Then, with a low hum that built into a thunderous crescendo, the orb erupted. A beam of light shot upward, fracturing into 1,000 luminous veins that spread across the ceiling. The very stars above us shuddered. Shadows elongated and twisted into unnatural forms, stretching across the floor like tendrils reaching for the condemned. The glow enveloped us, consuming all detail, color, shape, self. It was as if we stood suspended within a vast ocean of light and darkness intertwined. Every sound vanished except the steady, terrible rhythm of my own heartbeat. In that glow, I felt the weight of judgment descend, not as punishment, but as revelation. Something was coming. Something final. The chamber shimmered under a veil of celestial light, the air itself humming with a sacred resonance. The crystalline orb upon the pedestal bloomed to life, spilling waves of iridescent blue and violet across the room. The glow rippled like liquid silk over the polished marble floor, casting ephemeral reflections on the faces of gods, witnesses, and mortals alike. Above, the vaulted ceiling transformed into a living canvas of stars, whole constellations forming and dissolving with every flicker of the light. The projections danced, painting the story of a mother and her child in radiant motion. Each shimmered memory was rendered with haunting beauty. The gentle rocking of a cradle under golden lamplight, the echo of laughter carried on the wind, the warmth of two hands intertwined in fleeting joy. It was a portrait of devotion, a mother's love resurrected from the ashes of despair. Yet as the light shifted, joy became fractured. The once soft glow deepened into bruised hues of violet and indigo, the edges of the memories dissolving into shadows. Beneath the surface of the mother's joy lay something darker, a dissonance that vibrated through every image. Though her smile remained serene, her eyes betrayed a quiet torment. Within her heart, love and fear warred endlessly. She had her son back, or at least, something that wore his face. But deep inside, she sensed the truth her heart refused to name, that this child was not him. The boy's behavior soon unraveled the illusion. The vision showed him as a wild and restless force, tearing through their home like a storm barely contained. He ripped apart furniture as though it were made of parchment. He devoured entire meals in moments, his hunger bottomless, his strength unnatural. And when denied, he screamed, a sharp, animalistic sound that reverberated through their home and shattered the fragile peace she clung to. The mother's grief clung to her like a ghost. Her hands trembled as she tried to calm him, her eyes shimmering with a confusion of love and sorrow. The boy resembled her son in every way that mattered to memory, but not to spirit. Every smile he mimicked only made her heart ache deeper. Mr. Wiggles stepped forward, his voice cutting through the vision like a blade through mist. Now that we've seen enough, he said, his tone measured, his eyes glinting with cruel satisfaction. He turned toward me, his shadow stretching long beneath the blue glow. He destroyed this woman's life because she desired something fleeting. Humans are fickle creatures, grasping for what they've lost, only to discard it once they realize the illusion has no taste. He gestured toward the projection, where the woman's once bright eyes had dulled. Just like the sweet rush of chocolate on the tongue, her wish was momentary, ephemeral. Soon, she will see that this boy is not her son. No matter how much he looks like him, no matter how he laughs or cries, his soul is not the same. And what happens then, Eden? When she finally admits it? What becomes of the creature you gave her? What becomes of a home that has built itself upon a lie? His words struck like thunder rolling through the hall. I lowered my gaze, the weight of his accusation crushing against my chest. Shame burned through me like fire licking at dry leaves. I had known this might happen. I had known that granting her what she wanted most, a second chance at love, a chance to heal, might also curse her to live with a fracture between memory and reality. Yet, I had done it anyway. It wasn't malice. It was mercy twisted by desperation. Timothy suddenly rose from his chair, his voice slicing through the heavy silence. It's not finished yet, he shouted, eyes blazing. His finger pointed skyward toward the swirling images above us. All heads turned. The vision within the orb shifted again. The storm of chaos that had consumed the mother's life began to still. Her weeping ceased, her trembling hands steadied. A quiet determination settled over her. The child, though still strange, still unpredictable, began to learn her rhythm. They ate together, prayed together. She laughed again, even if the laughter was softer, tinged with sorrow. Night after night, she fell asleep beside the child's bed, her hand resting gently on his arm, whispering prayers not of regret, but of gratitude. Her heart began to understand a truth deeper than loss. This boy was not a replacement, nor a mistake. He was a new beginning shaped from the remnants of love. She wept for her first son, yes, but she also smiled for this one. The projection glowed brighter, revealing scenes of quiet devotion. Her cooking for him at dawn, teaching him to write with trembling hands, bandaging his scraped knees, humming lullabies long forgotten. And though the spectre of grief still lingered behind her eyes, it no longer consumed her. In this imperfect child, she had found grace again. Her love transcended what she'd lost. She does not live in illusion, I said softly, breaking the silence. My voice echoed through the luminous hall. She lives in acceptance. She understands that this child is not her old one, and still, she chooses to love him. Not out of denial, but out of courage. I lifted my eyes to Wiggles. Your mistake, I continued, my tone firm but measured, is assuming you truly understand humanity. You see them as simple, creatures of habit, slaves to fleeting emotion. But they are not so easily contained. Each one is a labyrinth of contradictions, a tapestry of love and suffering woven from experience. They break, they rebuild, and that's what makes them divine. Wiggles' expression curdled into irritation. His bright green coat shimmered under the dying light of the orb as he sauntered forward. Without a word, he extended a long, gloved hand and, with a single swipe, extinguished the crystal's glow. The luminous ceiling dimmed, the last traces of starlight fading into shadow. The room fell silent once more. He set the orb down at the feet of Judgment, the cosmic being who had watched the entire exchange without motion or sound. We may proceed, Wiggles announced coolly, his voice devoid of emotion. The defense has had its sentiment. Let us move on to the next matter. The silence that followed was suffocating, thick enough to swallow thought itself. Yet even in that quiet, the mother's love lingered, echoing faintly like a heartbeat in the dark. As my thoughts began to drift, the low hum of murmurs swelled within the courtroom, an undercurrent of judgment and curiosity weaving through the crowd like a living entity. The chamber was vast, its vaulted ceiling rippling with celestial light, constellations swirling in faint motion as though the heavens themselves leaned in to listen. The scent of old parchment and burning incense hung thick in the air, and from the shadows of the gallery, unseen figures whispered my name. You've harvested Chris Blaze, the son of Anu. A voice rang out, sharp, commanding, almost reverent. Please, enlighten us on how that situation came to be. A shiver threaded through me. My breath came slow and deliberate as I steadied myself. The memories returned, not as gentle recollections, but as a flood. They crashed into me with violent clarity. It began with grace, I said finally, my voice cutting through the tension like a blade. Though I spoke evenly, my chest felt as though it were being crushed beneath the weight of my own confession. She came to Timothy's house one night, frantic, desperate, searching for me. Her eyes were wild with fear, her hands trembling as she clutched the pendant around her neck. She was following Chris, trying to pull herself away from the nightmare that had become her world. The court leaned closer. Even the stars seemed to still. He was lost, I continued, alone in a forest where the moonlight bled silver across the dirt. The trees towered around him like ancient sentinels, their branches twisting into black veins against the sky. The ground was soft with leaves, wet with decay. Every sound, the rustle of wind, the crack of twigs, fed his terror. Fear flickered in his eyes like a candle in a storm. He knew something terrible was closing in, even if he didn't yet understand what it was. I paused, swallowing hard. He didn't know the full extent of his father's power, or of his mother's. But when desperation took hold, when every path around him turned to shadow, Cialitus whispered my name to him. A collective gasp rippled through the chamber. My name, long buried, long forbidden, hung in the air like a curse resurrected. So you harvested a fugitive. Wiggles' voice cut sharply through the murmurs. His tone was laced with disbelief and something colder, disappointment. Not just a fugitive, but a murderer. And now you stand here trying to justify it to the court. From the opposite side of the dais, Wiggles gave a derisive laugh, the sound echoing off the marble pillars. A murderer? He is no boy in Catapino years. He is 18 or 19. He knew his crime. I turned to him, incredulous. A boy. I spat. Yes, in the eyes of Earth, perhaps. But you and I both know age means nothing when the soul has already endured lifetimes of torment. He's seen death, tasted power, and carried guilt heavier than most grown men could bear. 18, 19, whatever number you attach to it, Chris Blaze was aware of his actions. The table rattled as my hand slammed against its surface. You twist the truth, Wiggles, because it suits your narrative. It was destiny, I continued, my voice rising, trembling with conviction. And you know it. But Wiggles only smirked, brushing the air dismissively with his hand. Destiny, he mused, his tone dripping with mockery. Ah, that tired refrain. Everyone here knows destiny isn't one straight path. It's two faces staring at mankind, a Gemini of fortune and ruin. One whispers salvation, the other damnation. The trick, he said, leaning forward with a glint of malice in his eye, is realizing which one you've been listening to. His words coiled around me like smoke. I clenched my fists, refusing to let him win. Then tell me, Eden, what about Chris? What's become of him? His voice broke slightly, dropping to a whisper. The silence that followed was unbearable. Truth was, I didn't know. I had promised to protect him. Instead, I had delivered him into chaos. I began, but Wiggles interrupted, his laughter sharp and cruel. He sauntered toward the crystal ball that rested on its pedestal, running his fingers over its smooth surface. There is no Eden waiting for you, he said softly, mockingly. Only consequence. He rubbed the crystal 3 times. The sphere pulsed with violent light, flooding the room in harsh illumination. Gasps filled the chamber as images took shape, Chris, trapped within the jagged halls of Sinner High. The walls crawled with shadows. Every step he took echoed with fear. The place breathed hostility, filled with twisted souls and unforgiving lessons. This, Wiggles said with a sneer, is the boy you swore to protect? The savior you risked everything for? He let out a dark chuckle. How poetic. The crystal dimmed, its light collapsing into nothingness. My heart sank with it. Words failed me. It's my fault, I finally murmured, the admission tasting like blood. All that matters now is that he's alive. That he's safe. The courtroom erupted in disbelief. Faces turned toward me, some in pity, others in scorn. But one pair of eyes, Timothy's, remained fixed and silent, unreadable. You're worried about Chris Blaze? A voice from the crowd shouted, thick with disgust. As if he didn't rip a father from his family. As if he didn't leave Sophia to mourn alone. Listen to yourself, Eden. Whatever happens to him now is God's judgment. His fate is earned. The name Sophia cut through me like glass. Her grief painted itself across my mind, her hands clutching the empty side of her bed, her tears soaking the floor, her whispering prayers to a God who would not answer. I lifted my gaze at last, my resolve hardening as something within me shifted, clarity, cold and piercing. I was tired. Tired of the manipulation. Tired of the half-truths dressed as justice. You all think you understand judgment, I said, my voice echoing through the vaulted chamber. But judgment without compassion is just cruelty disguised as order. The silence that followed was deafening. Anu was no good man, and I refused to treat him like one simply because he has died. The words cut through the air like a blade. The courtroom fell utterly silent, so still I could hear the faint hum of the celestial lights drifting overhead. Dozens of eyes turned toward me, their disbelief palpable. Even the ever-whispering echoes of the upper gallery stilled, as if the very walls were holding their breath. He was abusive toward his wife in every possible way, I continued, my voice low but unwavering. Mentally, physically, emotionally. He shattered her spirit and bound her to his will with chains she could not see. A murmur rippled through the assembly, but I pressed forward, refusing to be silenced. He enslaved an entire race, I said, each syllable heavy with contempt. Stripped them of their culture, their language, their gods. He left only fragments of their history, shards scattered across time, forcing them to kneel before him and worship him as the only divine truth. I could see the discomfort in their faces, the flicker of uncertainty, of denial. Some lowered their gazes, others clenched their jaws, unwilling to confront the image I painted. But I wasn't finished. He threw his own son, Chris, into the sun, I said bitterly, my voice echoing off the marble pillars, hoping he would burn alive, all because of a prophecy muttered by an old, half-blind man. I let the words linger, let the horror sink in. And as for his other children, I shook my head slowly, disgust curling in my gut. He treated them like insects, toys, a cruel distraction to pass eternity. Their pain was his amusement. Crushing them beneath his heel was his entertainment. I rolled my eyes, more out of exhaustion than arrogance. And now I'm expected to stand here, surrounded by all of you, and pretend he was some holy man, a saint incapable of sin. My tone sharpened, my voice rising until it filled the room. Everyone has done wrong, but not all wrongs are equal. Silence stretched between us like a blade drawn taut. I smacked my lips, scanning the room. Rows upon rows of divine faces stared back, some wide-eyed, others tight-lipped, all too cowardly to speak. Anu is directly responsible for the horrors that befell his people, I declared, my voice ringing with finality. And it doesn't matter what you say, I will not mourn the death of a devil. A wave of gasps rippled through the courtroom. The shock hit like thunder, a rolling wave that reverberated through the chamber's high arches. Wiggles' expression flickered, his brow furrowed, his composure cracking just slightly. The power in the room shifted. I could feel it. The audience leaned forward, caught somewhere between fascination and fear. I took a step back, my heart pounding against my ribs, and for the first time, I felt the exhaustion of it all, the endless judgments, the hypocrisy, the way these so-called gods perched above humanity, pretending their hands were clean. Yes, perhaps our actions were questionable, but they were necessary. We had saved Chris's life when hope was gone. We had given a grieving mother a fragment of peace. And now, here we were, condemned by beings who had committed far worse in the name of divinity. My chest tightened. Beneath my anger, a cold realization took root. They weren't seeking justice. They were seeking someone to punish. With the last of my dignity intact, I stepped down from the stand. The echo of my footsteps filled the chamber. My gaze found Timothy's. His eyes were wide, uncertain, darting between the judges and me. He looked small, his usual confidence stripped away by fear. I could feel it radiating off him, the dread of what would come next, the unspoken questions clawing at his mind. Would they ask about grace? Would they turn on him next? What would become of us? I sat beside him, the silence between us heavy, suffocating. For a brief moment, we didn't need words. The shared terror was enough. Then Wiggles' voice broke through, smooth and commanding, yet tinged with something I couldn't quite place. We will be taking a recess and will reconvene tomorrow morning. Judgment has been spoken. The gavel struck once, crack, and the sound reverberated through the hall like a gunshot. The crowd erupted in whispers, confusion, outrage. The tension dissolved into noise, the shuffle of robes and sandals echoing against cold stone. Torches flickered along the walls, casting wavering shadows across faces I no longer trusted. The crimson-robed officials moved toward us, their expressionless faces illuminated by the dim blue glow of the chamber's ceiling. They gestured for us to stand. "This way," one said curtly. We followed them through narrow corridors, the air growing colder with each turn. The marble gave way to rougher stone, the light fading until only the faint shimmer of runes lit our path. The officials said nothing as they opened the door to our quarters for the night, a small, dimly lit chamber lined with pale silver walls. A single table stood in the center, already set with 2 plates of food we could barely stomach. The air was heavy with dampness and something older, something ancient and sorrowful, like the breath of forgotten prisoners. "This will be your accommodation until judgment is passed," one of the robed figures announced before closing the door behind them. The sound of the latch locking echoed in the silence. I stared at the flickering lamp in the corner, its light feeble against the dark. The chill seeped into my bones, and for the first time since this trial began, I felt the true weight of what awaited us. Timothy sat beside me, his head bowed, his hands trembling. No words were spoken between us. None were needed. The silence said everything, that tonight could very well be our last. The chamber they confined us to was nothing short of extraordinary, an unsettling masterpiece that blurred the line between dream and nightmare. Its walls stretched endlessly upward and outward, disappearing into a darkness that shimmered like the farthest reaches of the cosmos. Standing within, it was like drifting in the void between stars, weightless yet crushed by the immensity surrounding us. The air was heavy, thick with the scent of ozone and faint incense, each breath carrying an undercurrent of divinity and decay. Massive pillars of deep green marble rose like ancient trees, their surfaces veined with glowing veins of gold that pulsed faintly, as if alive. They supported an obsidian ceiling so polished it mirrored the world below, a black ocean of reflection broken only by the movement of flickering lights that swirled like distant nebulae. The floor was made of the same dark material, smooth and cool beneath our feet, its surface interrupted by faint constellations etched into the stone, stars that shifted and rearranged themselves when one wasn't looking. The entire space hummed with restrained power, as though the architecture itself was aware of our presence and watching silently. Then, as if on cue, the ceiling began to stir. Pinpricks of light sparked to life, expanding and bending until they became moving projections, fragments of unknown worlds drifting across the room. Comets streaked between them, painting the chamber in alternating shades of blue, green, and violet. The light touched everything, crawling over the pillars, our clothes, our skin. It was almost beautiful, if not for the weight pressing on our chests. "They designed this for you," I murmured, glancing at Timothy. He stood frozen, eyes wide with uneasy awe. In the corner, an enormous mattress rested atop a polished platform, covered in silken sheets the color of emerald fire. It looked absurdly soft, almost divine in its perfection. A sleek television hung suspended above it, framed by a faint halo of light, its glass screen reflecting the ceiling's cosmic shimmer. It was comfort, temptation, and mockery all at once, a gilded cage for condemned souls. Timothy tensed beside me. The air seemed to constrict, thickening around us. I leaned closer to him, my voice barely above a whisper. "We need to figure out what you're going to say when they question you, Timothy. You can't hesitate." He rubbed his temples, his breathing shallow. "What am I going to say?" he stammered. "What am I going to do? I'm going to mess it all up." I knelt beside him, pressing my palm to the floor to ground myself against the chill that seeped up from the stone. "Listen to me. I know you're scared. I am too. But this," I gestured around the room, "this isn't the end. Death is only another kind of passage. We have to face it before we can move forward." His trembling stopped. For a long moment, he simply stared at the floor. Then he whispered, almost to himself, "Death." The word hung in the air like a prayer. Slowly, deliberately, he stood, pacing the expanse of the room as though trying to summon courage from its alien beauty. "I have an idea, Eden." My chest tightened. "What is it?" I asked, though dread coiled in my stomach. "What if we trap judgment in a bottle?" His eyes burned with an almost childlike conviction. I blinked, caught between disbelief and a flicker of admiration. "That's madness," I said with a breathless laugh. "Don't even entertain that thought. You know as well as I do, powers don't function here. Not the way they used to. And even if they did, we don't have the strength to imprison a god." Timothy's expression hardened. "You're wrong," he said, the hint of a smile playing on his lips. "Remember what the god of nothingness told me about dreaming? He said it was one of his gifts, a bridge between realms. If I can reach him again, if I can convince him, maybe he can help us." I froze. "You spoke to the god of nothingness, in his world." My voice dropped to a whisper. "What did he do to you?" Timothy shook his head. "Nothing. He just talked. He showed me things. I don't think he's our enemy, Eden. Trust me, we can rely on him." I wanted to argue, but the sincerity in his voice disarmed me. The hope in his eyes, fragile yet burning, was something I couldn't extinguish. I sighed and nodded slowly. "Then be careful. Whatever happens, I'll guard your body until you wake." He climbed onto the massive bed, the silk rustling beneath him like whispering waves. The light from above dimmed as his eyes fluttered closed, his breathing slowing until the rhythm of sleep overtook him. And then, somewhere deep in that silence, his dream began. Timothy opened his eyes to color. Vibrant, living color. He stood in the middle of a sprawling carnival bathed in golden light. Laughter echoed through the air, mingling with a cheerful hum of calliope music. The scent of buttered popcorn and candied sugar filled his lungs. He looked down. He was dressed in a red and white striped uniform, his arms cradling paper bags filled with peanuts. Around him, children ran in circles, their laughter bubbling like music. He smiled despite himself, handing out peanuts to eager little hands, his heart swelling with a warmth that felt almost real. The chaos was joyful, comforting. Until it wasn't. A strange tension crept into the air. As Timothy looked toward the Ferris wheel, something shifted. The families on the ride began to blur, faces melting into smears of color. The music distorted, slowing into a warped, discordant hum. The sky darkened, turning from gold to bruised purple. Then he saw him. A man sat alone in a distant booth, his posture too still, his gaze too direct. He wasn't part of the dream. Timothy could feel it. The man's eyes locked onto his, cold and knowing. Before Timothy could move, a hand seized his wrist. "Come on," said a voice. He turned to see the fifth brother, short and serene, dressed in a deep indigo cloak that rippled like smoke. Without another word, the brother led him away from the carnival, weaving through the thinning crowd until they stood before the entrance of a haunted house, its facade cracked, its sign flickering weakly in the dying light. As they stepped inside, the laughter outside vanished, replaced by the soft creak of wooden floors and the hollow echo of distant whispers. The air smelled of old candles and rain. Shadows moved across the walls, alive but unformed. The fifth brother finally spoke, his tone calm but curious. "Timothy, what are you doing here?" Timothy frowned, confused. "This is my dream," he said, his voice unsteady. The brother looked around, taking in the warped architecture and carnival remnants bleeding through the shadows. "Your dream," he repeated, smiling faintly. "Interesting." He clapped Timothy lightly on the shoulder, his laugh low and knowing. "You've wandered far, little dreamer." And as they continued down the corridor, deeper into the darkness, Timothy realized that the dream was beginning to change again, the walls breathing, the air thickening with meaning. Whatever this place was, it wasn't simply a dream anymore. It was a threshold. "Yeah, you're right," Timothy murmured, shifting uncomfortably. "But you still can't be looking at people outside of your zone," the boy replied, his voice calm yet threaded with a quiet, almost sacred urgency. His words seemed to echo through the dreamscape around them, an endless stretch of shifting lights and translucent shadows that rippled like waves in the sky. Timothy squinted, his brow furrowing in bewilderment. "What does that even mean?" "I can't look in my dream. I look all the time," he said, half joking, half frustrated, trying to inject levity into something that felt too strange to comprehend. The boy, nothingness, let out a hearty laugh that rolled through the ether like a bell in a cathedral of fog. "You can look, sure," he said, pointing upward as if gesturing to invisible constellations. "But there are boundaries in certain places, barriers you don't see but feel. If you try to peek beyond them, you're not dreaming anymore. You're tampering. Every dream has a script, Timothy, and the moment you start improvising." His expression darkened slightly. "Bad things happen. So don't go off script." He wagged a finger playfully, but the weight behind his tone made Timothy's stomach tighten. "Noted," Timothy said, trying to mask his unease. "But I didn't dream you here just to talk about dream etiquette. I need your help, your brother, judgment." He didn't finish. The world around him suddenly grew heavier, the colors fading into gray mist, the laughter of the carnival long gone. An oppressive emptiness rolled in like a storm cloud, pressing against his chest until he could barely breathe. "Timothy, of course I'll help you," the boy said softly, stepping forward and wrapping his arms around Timothy's leg in an oddly childlike embrace. The contact was grounded, almost human. "And between you and me," he added with a conspiratorial grin, "my brother Judgment's been getting on my nerves anyway. We're supposed to have our pancake party every 3 years. He didn't show up, didn't call. I sat there like an idiot with syrup and silence." Timothy couldn't help but let out a small laugh, the absurdity of it momentarily cutting through the tension. But the humor didn't last. Nothingness tilted his head, the grin fading. "But tell me, Timothy, is that really all you want from me?" The question hung in the air like a chime struck in still water. Timothy's gaze dropped to the shimmering ground beneath him, shame and longing twisting together. "There's someone who shouldn't have died. Her name was Grace." His voice trembled as he said it, and the silence that followed was suffocating. "I remember her," Nothingness said after a moment, his tone quieter, softer. "She's doing fine now, just sleeping." He stepped closer, his form flickering faintly, as though he were made of light barely holding itself together. Together they began to walk again, exiting the haunted house and stepping back into the flickering lights of the dream carnival. But for Timothy, the joy of that place was gone, his heart tethered to a memory that refused to fade. "Can you bring her back?" he asked finally, desperation cracking through his words. "Can you make her alive again?" Nothingness stopped abruptly. The brightness around him dimmed, his once playful eyes turning somber. "When I said I could help," he began slowly, "I meant something like finding you $5, not reversing the laws that hold the universe together." His laugh was nervous this time, uncertain, as though he feared disappointing Timothy. "I know," Timothy said quietly, his voice breaking. "It's just. She means everything to me." The boy turned fully to face him then, a warm, almost paternal smile spreading across his lips. "Listen to me, kid. You remember how you moved on from your mother's death?" Timothy hesitated, nodding faintly. "Then you already know how to move through this. You can't keep living in circles, begging the same gods for mercy, asking different ones for miracles. That's not living, it's looping. You've got to accept what is and let go of what isn't." Timothy looked away, his throat tight. That wasn't the answer he wanted. Maybe it never would be. He took a deep breath, shifting the topic, his eyes sharpening with new resolve. "Then help me trap judgment inside a bottle." Nothingness blinked in surprise, then burst into delighted laughter. "You're a wicked one, Timothy." His grin turned sly. "All right, I'll help you. When you wake up, there'll be a bottle beside your bed. Don't worry about permissions or powers, I'll bend the rules for you." He winked, eyes twinkling with mischief. Relief and disbelief swirled inside Timothy. He closed his eyes, letting the dream dissolve, and when they opened again, he was back. The room was silent. The air hung thick with divine judgment. And there, gleaming faintly beside him on the bed, was the bottle. Its glass shimmered with a strange inner light, like a captured star trying to escape. "Look!" Timothy exclaimed, holding it up proudly. I took it from him, tucking it securely into the folds of my coat. "How are we supposed to get to him?" I asked, my voice low, already calculating the impossible. Timothy's eyes darted downward. "Can we request to speak with him?" The thought clicked in my mind, sharp as lightning. Yes, we can. Without hesitation, I strode to the door and called for an attendant. The wait that followed was agonizing, a slow unraveling of nerves measured by the ticking of unseen clocks. Finally, a robed figure appeared and motioned for us to follow. We walked through halls carved from celestial stone, the walls alive with shifting constellations and whispering lights. The air itself seemed sacred, heavy with judgment and ancient authority. And then, at last, we reached him. Judgment. A being both terrible and magnificent, his presence bending the air around him. Light seemed to struggle to touch him, warping and darkening at the edges. We bowed our heads, breath shallow, hearts pounding in sync with the cosmic rhythm that filled the chamber. The silence stretched long enough to feel eternal, until, at last, judgment spoke. Mr. Wiggles' judgment stood beside him, tall, sharp-featured, and wreathed in an aura of pale gold that pulsed with restrained power. His presence was suffocating, as if the weight of eternity itself leaned against the room. Every flicker of his movement carried a precision that belonged only to beings who had seen the birth and death of countless worlds. A faint smirk curled across his face as he chuckled, the sound low and unnerving, echoing off the marble pillars like it distorted him. The absurdity of it all struck me then, two mortals kneeling before the embodiment of cosmic law, before judgment himself. The chamber thrummed with tension, the air thick with divine static that prickled at my skin. Mr. Wiggles broke the silence first, his feline eyes narrowing into burning slits. "Why are you here, Timothy and Eden?" he demanded, his voice laced with unrestrained fury. The velvet smoothness that usually accompanied his tone was gone, replaced by something raw, something ancient. I raised my head slowly, locking eyes with him. His stare burned, piercing through flesh and soul alike. "We are here to speak to judgment," I said, my voice trembling but steadying with each word. "We would like to ask one last thing before we go." Judgment turned, his movements fluid, almost ceremonial. He regarded Mr. Wiggles with a look that made even the trickster recoil, a silent command radiating through his gaze. Wiggles sighed dramatically, the corners of his mouth twitching with irritation. "Of course you can," he muttered, his tone dripping with sarcasm and resentment. "One last thing, then." Timothy stepped forward first, his resolve cutting through the charged air. The dim light of the chamber caught the determination etched in his face, illuminating the faint tremor of his hands. Not fear, but purpose. I followed close behind, pulling the bottle from beneath my coat. It shimmered faintly, its glass surface rippling like liquid mercury under the golden torches that lined the walls. The carved sigils along its neck glowed faintly, resonating with something older than magic. I unscrewed the cap slowly. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. The silence grew unbearable, too perfect, too deliberate. Then Judgment's expression twisted. With a deafening crash, he slammed his fist down upon the great table before him. The sound reverberated like thunder through the chamber, shaking dust from the ceiling and extinguishing several torches. His fury was absolute, his power booming with celestial authority. The marble beneath our feet splintered, and the air trembled with each syllable. His anger was not mortal rage. It was creation itself rebelling against its own confines. Mr. Wiggles darted forward, trying desperately to calm the storm. "My lord, wait, this is not—" He was cut off by the sheer magnitude of Judgment's roar, which tore through sound and silence alike. Then, amid the chaos, Timothy's voice rang out, clear and unflinching, "May this be undone!" He seized the bottle from my grasp. The world froze. A violent wind whipped through the hall, tearing at our clothes and sending parchment flying like frightened birds. Judgment's body convulsed, his form flickering like a candle caught in a hurricane. And then, impossibly, his toe began to dissolve, drawn toward the bottle by a gravitational force that defied reality. The process was slow at first, mesmerizing, horrific. His essence twisted and folded upon itself, streams of light and shadow collapsing into the narrow mouth of the bottle. His voice fractured into 1,000 echoes, howling in divine outrage as his body was devoured piece by piece. The sight paralyzed Mr. Wiggles. His smirk was gone, his face was a study in terror and disbelief. "Have you," he stammered, his tail bristling, his voice trembling as he took a hesitant step backward. "Have you done what I think you've done?" The last of Judgment's form vanished into the bottle with a blinding flash. The room fell still. I met Wiggles' wide, terrified eyes. "We do not wish to harm you," I said, my voice cold but steady. "We will be placing a clone in Judgment's absence. You will oversee all rulings from this moment forward. Do you understand?" The trickster's shock hardened into defiance. His pupils thinned to razor slits, and his fur shimmered faintly with spectral light. His entire posture shifted, no longer the cowering subordinate, but a creature bracing for divine rebellion. His anger was cold, deliberate, and lethal. "Of course," he hissed, his tone drenched in venom. "And when they find out what you've done, Eden." He smiled, a cruel, serpentine curl of the lips. "I will tell all." Timothy said nothing. He simply turned, his boots echoing on the stone floor as he strode toward the exit, the bottle glowing faintly in his hand. I lingered, feeling the weight of countless unseen eyes upon me, gods, spirits, watchers in the dark. The chamber seemed to breathe around us, alive with the enormity of what had transpired. I looked back at the bottle, at the faint swirl of light flickering within, Judgment himself, reduced to containment, eternity imprisoned in glass. My voice came out low, solemn, but sharp enough to pierce the air. "And the ironic part, Wiggles," I said, my words steady, "is that the same God who created all of this is now the one trapped within it. By our hands." Mr. Wiggles' jaw tightened. The firelight reflected off his eyes, turning them into twin embers of wrath and humiliation. Timothy stopped at the threshold, glancing back at me with disbelief etched across his face, as though I had just spoken a truth that defied heaven itself. Together, we stepped beyond the chamber, the door closing with a resonant finality that sounded almost like a heartbeat fading into silence. Behind us, Mr. Wiggles stood alone amid the flickering torches. His fury simmered beneath a polished calm, his pride shattered but his cunning unbroken. He was no longer the puppet master, merely the puppet. And though his lips curled into a sneer, deep in his eyes burned something colder, something dangerous, the promise that our defiance had awakened enemies far greater than Judgment himself. The next day unfolded with a quiet, mournful grace, a stillness so profound it felt as though time itself had paused to draw breath. The air hung thick with expectation, heavy as morning fog. Timothy lay sprawled across the bed, half-curled beneath the silken green covers, his eyes distant and hollow. The faint rise and fall of his chest betrayed a storm beneath the calm, as if his thoughts were devouring him from the inside. I hadn't slept. My mind had refused to surrender to rest. I sat upright on the edge of the bed, staring toward the door, waiting for the inevitable creak of its hinges. My heart thrummed a feverish rhythm, anticipation twisting into dread. It felt as though we were suspended between two worlds, one fading, the other waiting to pass judgment. Then, at last, the horizon split with light. Dawn unfurled slowly, its golden hue bleeding through the cracks in the stone walls. Dust shimmered in the sunlight, dancing like falling embers. The The world beyond the window was bathed in warmth, but inside, the air was cold and electric, charged with something unspoken. The door opened. The guards entered with military precision, their crimson robes whispering against the marble floor. Each step they took resonated like the beating of a drum, deliberate, measured, final. Their faces were veiled in hoods, concealing whatever humanity might linger beneath. Their presence alone was enough to silence thought. Without a word, they motioned for us to rise. Timothy straightened himself, though his eyes never quite met mine. I could feel his uncertainty, a quiet tremor hidden beneath his composure. Together, we followed them through the long corridor. The journey to the courtroom felt longer than it should have been. The hallways seemed to breathe, the shadows pulsed like living things. The echo of our footsteps merged with the rhythmic clang of the guards' boots, and the air grew colder the closer we came to our destination. When the great doors opened once more, the room before us had changed. The space that once felt suffocating now carried a deceptive calm, like a storm settling just before its second strike. The ceiling shimmered faintly, painted with constellations that seemed to move of their own accord, swirling through deep hues of violet and gold. Mr. Wiggles sat perched in his seat, elegant as ever, his posture flawless, his gaze unreadable. To his right loomed the cloned judge, motionless, his figure cloaked in shadows that seemed to hum with restrained power. "No need to walk any further," one of the crimson-robed men intoned, raising a gloved hand. His voice reverberated through the chamber, sharp and cold, carrying the authority of something ancient. "The judgment has been rendered," he continued. "You are found not guilty. You may return to your lives, to live as you please." For a moment, I could not breathe. The words felt surreal, too simple to contain the gravity of everything we had endured. But then his tone shifted, softer, lower, almost conspiratorial. "However," his voice cracked into something almost manic, his eyes darting like those of a man haunted by his own gods. "You are being watched now. Many eyes are upon you, the witches, the yellow gods, and above all, Sophia." His lips curled into a tremor of a smile, one that carried no joy, only warning. "Be mindful," he whispered, as if the very walls were listening. Then, without preamble, the air behind us began to shimmer. A swirling portal bloomed into existence, a whirl of azure and gold that pulsed like a living heart. The light from it cast long, fluid shadows across the room, bending reality around its edges. Within its depths, I saw the familiar outline of Tennessee, our home, waiting beyond the veil. I turned to Timothy, gesturing toward it. "It's over," I said softly, almost in disbelief. "We can go home now." But Timothy didn't move. He stood still, his expression hard to read, a strange blend of sorrow and resolve. The light of the portal danced across his face, highlighting the weariness that clung to him. "Timothy?" I asked, unease creeping into my tone. He finally spoke, his voice distant. "I need a portal. To the people who killed Grace." The words hit like a crack of thunder in the quiet room. Before I could respond, Mr. Wiggles stirred, his feline eyes glinting with knowing amusement. A faint smile ghosted across his lips, one that spoke of secrets and impossible bargains. "Of course," he said smoothly, the velvet of his tone hiding 1,000 layers of intent. "But first, you'll need these." He raised a hand, and from the space between his fingers, 3 coins materialized, radiant, spinning, alive. They danced around Timothy in slow orbits, each one glowing with a light of its own color. One gold, one silver, one black as ink. "These coins," Wiggles said, "can grant any wish you desire. But choose wisely. Every choice echoes across worlds. The power you wield is not a gift, it's a promise. And promises," he added with a sly grin, "have a way of collecting their own debts." The coins dissolved into light, sinking into Timothy's chest. His eyes fluttered shut as his mind was pulled elsewhere, beyond time, beyond mortal comprehension. In the darkness behind his lids, visions surged like waves. Grace's final moments unfolded before him, her last breath, the cruelty of her death, the faces of those responsible etched in blinding clarity. But he saw more than the surface. He saw their histories, their regrets, their hidden sins and quiet despairs. He knew where they hid now, every one of them illuminated by a spectral glow, their lives exposed like open books. When he opened his eyes, he was changed. Determination burned in his gaze, fierce and unyielding. Then, the portal behind us began to shift. Its color deepened, rippling from gold into a violent storm gray, then bleeding into black. The air grew heavy, humming with unfamiliar energy. Lightning crackled across its surface, illuminating a world of jagged peaks and swirling snow. The familiar warmth of Tennessee vanished, replaced by the howling expanse of the southern Arctic mountains, a realm of ice and shadow. And then, from within that tempest, a colossal shape emerged. A head, vast and ancient, pushed through the blizzard, a dragon, its scales gleaming like shards of onyx, reflecting the flickering light of distant storms. Its eyes opened slowly, golden and all-seeing, each one the size of a burning sun. The ground trembled beneath its breath, the air vibrating with the low, thunderous rumble of its growl. It was not merely a beast, it was a presence. Primordial, eternal. Timothy took a step forward, awe and fury blending in his gaze. I followed, my pulse quickening, every instinct screaming that this encounter would define everything to come. The dragon lowered its massive head, smoke curling from its nostrils, and the wind around us stilled, as if the entire realm had bowed to its will. And in that silence, I understood, our judgment had spared us, yes. But the true reckoning was only beginning.